Shadow comes face to face with a little bit of Cairo's history. Wednesday meets up with the Dwarf King, and down in New Orleans, Sweeney and Laura meet the swinging Baron Samedi. Plus, just a quick little chat about last week's review. It's American Gods, Season 2, Episode 5. The Ways of the Dead. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of American Gods. So yes, of course, there are spoilers ahead, and as always, our new table of contents indexing thing. I gotta give a title to that. Down in the description below, we'll have a little list of sections of this review, so you can jump around, jump to your favorite part, watch the review in any order that you'd like. So, want to do that? Just look down in the description below. Before we get into things right now, I seem to have hit a bit of a nerve last week with my review. Wow, really some, I don't know, divergent responses. It was really interesting going through the comments section later on and getting all of your feedback, because it was literally like, oh man, you're right on, this is exactly how I feel about this season, and dude, you suck, you have no idea what you're talking about. So it was really interesting to go in, and I gotta say, for the most part, everybody was very respectful. I want to hear different opinions. I mean, I do these reviews because I like talking about great shows that I am interested in. I don't do reviews on shows I don't like. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want to waste my time watching shows I don't want to watch, and I don't want to waste your time just watching a ranty review. I mean, yes, sometimes that's cathartic, but not always. That's why I've even stopped doing shows, because I don't like watching them anymore. They're not hitting with me. So by all means, I love this show. I have waited for this show to come back. It's been 2 years. I really enjoyed season 1. It had a few issues. There was a couple of episodes that sort of pulled away, I think, from the through line, but overall, I thought it was great storytelling, great visuals, really interesting techniques that were used, and so I was really looking forward to this season. So I want this show to be great, and overall, I like it. That was, to me, kind of the funniest thing about some of the comments is, while I was talking about the season kind of dragging a little bit, there was a lot that I liked, and the people that were pointing out, dude, what are you talking about? This show's great. What about Nancy's scene with Bilquis and Ibis? Oh, my scene of the week? Yeah, I like that. Or the birth of Technology Boy. Also, another scene that I love. The bits with Wednesday, always really entertaining. Even the stories there. There are great moments in this show. By far. The problem that I have with this show, and again, I'm hitting sequences, I'm being specific, but to me that's the great thing, again, about doing these reviews. I like to talk about shows that I enjoy, and I like to wonder why things work and things don't work. What makes something good and what makes something bad? What makes something interesting and what makes something boring? I like figuring that out. And the issues that I'm having with this sequence, not that there aren't wonderful elements. In this episode, so many great moments and interesting points. The problem that I have is that they're not being stitched together in a coherent whole. Last season, I can tell you exactly what the season was about. Wednesday hires Shadow Moon and goes around to recruit the old gods for his war against the new gods. That's it. That was season 1. That's what happened. Did the whole thing, met with gods, some worked, some didn't work, and by the end, he met back up with Mr. World, he had the big conflict there with Easter, and the war was declared. Boom. Nice, easy arc. I have no idea what's going on this season. What is the subplay of this season? Is it just, again, Odin goes around to recruit old gods for his war against the new gods? Is it a repeat path of season 1? That's sort of what it feels like. There are little differences. We're diving into a little bit more history. But there is so much kind of filler and stuff that isn't linking up. There's repeated themes. And I was really hoping for a tighter season, something that didn't sort of drag. There are great moments, again, in the show. There are great bits. But as a cohesive whole, I have difficulty finding out what path they're doing. What is the summary of this season? What's the point of it? And so that's sort of where my issues come from. Not that I don't enjoy the show. Not that I don't get the points that are being told. The reason that I am sharing these points, when they do something great, I want to share that with you. If they're not doing something good, if they're doing something that doesn't work, I got to share that with you too. Otherwise, I'm just praising through these reviews and completely fanboying. And yes, fanboying is important. Fanboying is important during these reviews because that's why I do them. Because I enjoy the shows. But also to get a little technical and say when things work and when they don't work, so that there's a reality to what I'm doing here, that there is actually something of substance. So I really appreciate all of you watching, and certainly appreciate you listening to this little rant of mine before we get in. And yes, please disagree with me. If I don't see something and you guys see something, let me know what that is. I enjoy and I get to see more of the show when you guys share your points of view with me. But as usual, let's just have a respectful conversation. And it's all good. All right, so let's get to our review proper. And again, another great episode, another lot of great moments, though, as I said, having some issues with how all of this is kind of stitching together as a coherent season. But the opening bit, again, beautifully done. Really enjoy the kind of change of feeling. When the scene opens up, we have all the bright light and the sort of faded, whitened out, washed out coloring. Gives it a very ethereal look. I mean, the music is very ethereal there. A very godly, great sort of introduction into here. And as the scene progresses, it gets grittier and realer and darker and twisted. And it was just sort of a great way to sort of start this moment, bring everyone in, and sort of almost like a heavenly afterlife imagery, and just seeing as all of this slow motion is used both to convey that initial sense of etherealness and then also really intensifying all of the emotions that we get to see. This, of course, being what we find out to be, is the lynching of William Froggy James from way back in the day, who was guilty of, crossing paths with a white woman. And then, unfortunately, she was found dead afterwards. Is he guilty? Doesn't matter at all. Witnesses pointed to a black man to being guilty, and thus he is punished for it. I guess we find out that the sheriff was honest and did protect him briefly until the crowd got to him. Hung him up, then the rope broke, then he was shot, dragged through the streets, beheaded, and set on fire, to the roaring crowds and adulations of 10,000 people, I think, is what Mr. Ibis ended up giving us. So this being kind of the background of Cairo, and sort of a repeating theme as we see later on as Nancy encounters the poor drug user who, I guess, buying from the one crack house, the cops are going to sit outside and just sort of watch that to happen. Doesn't seem to be sort of a bright setup there. But really, again, just showing how this is repeating. He seems to have been just caught, but of course, Jamar's body is brought back into Mr. Ibis, suffering from these same conditions. Head having been set on fire, bullet-riddled body. Is this the curse of Froggy? Jamar did see his burning head there as a torch while running from the police just before was he caught. Is that something that Froggy is bestowing? In the encounter that he has with Shadow, he does talk about the fact that he's finding those without hope and setting them off to a peaceful life, I guess in the afterlife at that point. Or is he a herald of the repetition that is happening in this town of black men, again, being taken, whether it be by police or crowds, and instead of being taken to prison, instead of going through the justice system, they take the crowd's justice and are shot and set on fire. And this is what is feeding Mr. Ibis's and Mr. Jekyll's business there, which is what seems to be upsetting Nancy. So we've got a lot of interesting kind of directions that are going on with this. Talking more about the... Well, we're hitting a lot of the, God, I hate to say it this way, plight of the black man in America. This is a repeating theme. And I know I talked earlier about what is the repeating theme of this season. I don't think this should be it. Maybe it is, showing Shadow the truth and the deeper backgrounds here. We've hit this theme, like I said, several times. And this is the only thing that kind of pulled me back against it. This is why I talk about that there are always great moments and there are great presentations. How this was all conveyed and brought together, there were a lot of really great bits. It is a theme that we've hit upon several times already this season, so I'm not really sure where the show is going with this. That is my only critique on this. But again, very insightful, very interesting to see also with inside of the mortuary there, the flight of Ruby Goodchild, how she's wanting to leave town. Certainly has really connected with Bilquis. But I thought it was really interesting to see actually how the preacher sort of changed his tune, how it was originally all talking about faith and belief, and Ruby already pushing against this. You said everything was going to be all right, and you lied. You know, once they find out that Jamar and Grandma is gone, the street's going to come for what they want. That this is not a place where the black population is safe. We're hitting this on Froggy Williams' bit. We're hitting on Nancy's kind of critique on Ibis. Are they keeping their business alive by, I don't know, if he was implying using Froggy as a hunting tool to kill black men and thus feed them in? Are they turning a blind eye to the darkness, to the racism that's inherent in this town and thus just making money off of it? Because Nancy wants to fight. And that seems to be where he is pushing right here. It's not so much that Ibis and Jekyll are mortuaries or what they're doing, or they're not willing to fight. The fact that they seem to be profiting still off of the battle being fought around them, and they are not backing things up. And that seemed to be also Will James's position here when they were telling the story about him bringing up why is he cursed against the other colored people in the town. It is because those were the ones that he was looking as he was being lynched, those who would not fight back. And I think this is particularly why this is grabbing Nancy and really pushing him. And I'm really curious if his presence is what influenced the father afterwards. Because the father sort of represents that idea of like, everything's going to be all right, everything's going to turn. And when he does that final sermon, he even says, that's what I used to do when I should have turned around and fought. He really seems to have come over almost to Nancy's part. Not willing to totally go the way. He does tell Ruby, if you get out of town, if you find a place that is not hell, let me know. I'll come right there. He doesn't seem interested in fighting so much, which I found interesting, especially if there was that little bit of Nancy influence on him. He's acknowledging what's going on, but he's not still taking part in actually fighting it, which I found interesting. And one last little note, Memento Mori. What Froggy James keeps saying to Shadow, and Shadow brings back. Yes, that is, remember that you're going to die. It's a Christian procedure. It, I think, comes from the Middle Ages. It's reflecting on the mortality of life, that all things pass, all things are transitory. So it's a way of looking at these things, but it's also a way, I think, of, again, acknowledging what's going on in the world. We are all going to die, so fight for what you believe in. Might be what's sort of pushing through. It's sort of hard to tell, because despite all the stuff that happens with Shadow in the episode, once he comes up and does this quick little speech, which is basically Memento Mori, we're all going to die, I learned this lesson back then, and Shadow's out. That was the whole lesson that he was supposed to, that was the whole message he was supposed to bring across. That's what I didn't make sense. That's what I'm saying. Great moments, whole not always working out. I kind of actually have to agree with Shadow in his last discussion there with Wednesday and Nancy and Ibis. Are you going to give me an answer? No, then F you. Click off. I'm running around in circles. And that's, again, great moments, but it does feel a little circle running at times. Meanwhile, Wednesday is out to meet with the Dwarf King, not played by Peter Dinklage. Okay, so technically in Avengers Infinity War, Peter Dinklage played Idris, the Dwarf King. This is Alvis, he's the Master Craftsman. But he's the Dwarf King in America because he's the tallest dwarf in America. And I guess you have to have standards on some level. Really, just not a whole lot going on with this actual meeting. Again, we're meeting up with another god. He's bringing Gungnir, and it needs to be repaired. He's not the god to do it. It's the Vilni that is the god that's going to best repair because it's the runes that we're going after. He does mechanical. Vilni does the runes. So that's really, from a whole giant nutshell, what this whole meeting, how this flares out. It's a very simple, straightforward sequence. The really interesting part about this section of the show is really the interplay between Jin, Salim, and Wednesday. I think as they're playing about faith, and Wednesday is trying to recruit Salim as one of his worshippers, and there's the debate about God and truth and all of that. To me, this was actually one of the more interesting parts of the episode. And in fact, the first scene of this is our Scene of the Week for this week. And that is Jin and Salim waiting for Wednesday. Not waiting for Godot, we're waiting for Wednesday. As they begin to have this discussion on faith, belief, religion, the fact that Salim kind of worships Jin, but he believes in God, and yet Jin is talking to him about which God? You've seen gods, you've been part of this, how do you know that one is greater than the others? It was a really interesting conversation, especially when you hit the point about Salim saying, well, you know, in the Quran it says that there is no God other than God. And Jin throws back, yeah, well, Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal, but he owned slaves. So maybe the written word you can't always take exactly as truth and meaning. So this whole first bit, I thought, as this conversation started, this I thought was just beautifully played. Throughout the episode, they continue to hit on this point. But not only do we again have that fun interplay between Salim and Jin, but then Wednesday showing up and just messing with them, just poking at them constantly. I've come to pick up 2 men from the city of Sodom. That's great. And then, of course, hitting Jin about, you must have been there. How is it God? What about Yahweh? Again, using a lot of the ancient God terminology. Was just real, again, poking. You can't, I'm not your chauffeur. Can't you have guys canoodling in the back seat? This is America. We'd be pulled over. I mean, again, even kind of poking fun at America and its kind of prudish sense, despite the fact of all of touting all about freedom. It's an interesting balance that they kind of hit on constantly in the show. So it was a great opening bit. It set the tone for the rest of their little adventures going on. Again, which follows up with then Wednesday, again, we're moving on from the scene of the week to the rest of the sequences. I love that one just because, again, it set up the whole bit for the rest of the episode. But then Wednesday constantly kind of trying to pull Salim over as a worshiper. What are you, monotheists? You know, there's too many of you. We need a little bit of that worship. It can't all go just to your one God. I can be part of your pantheon. I'm a fun-loving God. It was great. And then even Jin following up with that, hitting. This is somebody who does what they're, believes what they're told, believes what they read, and not what they see or experience. It's a fun little interplay. And despite all of this poking and prodding, of course, Salim still jumps on the bike and goes with Jin because he believes in him. he does in a way. I mean, that's a fun thing about Sleem. In some ways, he is splitting his warship. He just doesn't totally understand that yet. Misguided monotheist. That was the one. I knew I'd remember it. It's sort of, again, it's a dig, but it's not a hard dig because he is still trying to recruit him. So it's Wednesday. A little give, a little take. Constantly pulling and pushing. And, of course, we got the leprechaun and dead wife down in Nylons to see Baron Samedi kind of try and turn back Laura's clock a little bit. This was just kind of fun. A little bit of illuminating in some sense. Not a whole lot of... I mean, I guess we have world building. I guess you could put it like this. It's fun. We're certainly seeing Sweeney just passed out drunk, literally passed out drunk in New Orleans. And it was interesting, too, as he kind of hugs that big Jesus statue. He's in that mix of kind of like love and hate and anger and fear and uncomfortable. Sweeney is not doing well. And we kind of see the whole reasoning behind this. There has been suspicions, I've brought this up. Why is Sweeney fighting so hard? Just to get his coin? I don't think so. No, he's in love with Laura. He is. That got sussed out by Brigitte pretty quick. Which is kind of an unfortunate discovery for his relationship with Laura. But maybe exactly what she needs to come back alive. Again, just sort of a fun little bit there. I love Baron Samedi. I love Brigitte. I love their interplay. We got a little polyamorous god action going on. Which I guess you would expect to find down there. No type on New Orleans. I'm just saying it's a cosmopolitan town. And, you know, love should be shared, I guess. But, yeah, just the whole kind of interplay there. It is kind of odd in some sense in that somebody was pushing so much about wanting truth. This is the price that he asks. This is the sort of contract. I know that Sweeney had kind of pushed very much about there's going to be a heavy price for resurrection. But there doesn't really seem to be. It's just sleep with a god. Or is this Samedi kind of messing with Sweeney as well? I mean, all right, so Baron Samedi, he puts a little mix together and he needs 2 drops of blood from love, basically. Find somebody who loves you, put 2 drops of their blood in here, boom, you're good to go. It's Sweeney that he's got to get the blood from. I think that's really what was going on in that whole sequence. We're not only seeing that there is that sort of relationship there, was Baron trying to show that to Laura? Are Baron and Brigitte, is this how they sort of mess with other gods? They don't seem to get anything out of it. The truth seemed to be that somebody wanted us. The truth is, I'll do whatever you want. I'll sleep with you if that's what you need. Whatever it needs to be born, or to be resurrected. So, just outside of a cool sequence with a nice little sexy time and the revelation that Sweeney actually is in love with Laura, not really a whole lot more of substance going on. But do we need it? I guess not. It was a fun sequence. It was well shot. It's great to see down at New Orleans bar and all that. But unfortunately, it seems to go badly for both of them at the end, because the one thing Laura does not want to see is that Sweeney is in love with her, promptly turns and walks out the door. And much like Sweeney says, the further he is away from the coin, the worse his luck gets. As soon as Laura leaves with his coin, well, his luck goes to crap, because he can't even light his cigarette. Now, I do wonder, his curse at the end, is that to Laura, or is that to Samedi? Is he blaming Samedi for that sort of exposure, for them messing with him, instead of just doing what he's supposed to do and just giving her back her life, that now they've gone and complicated things? Also, if he is in love with her, did Samedi's action then drive Laura away from him? Is that why he cursed? Or is he just cursing Laura because she broke the deal and is walking away with his coin, and that's all that he can do? Kind of curious. It could go both ways. It feels a little bit more like The Place and less Laura, but like I said, could go both ways. All right, just a couple of small things. One, Laura is popping up in throughout time, isn't she? As is Shadow. Interesting seeing that the woman that they used that Froggy was accused of killing, because he crossed paths with her, looked just like Laura. And we have already seen that Sweeney kind of fell in love with a woman that looked just like Laura. She has appeared previously in history. Are they just using the actress to play the role, or are they saying that she is a recurring character through time? Is she in her own way immortal? And is Shadow the same way? Because again, Shadow also playing one of the characters. Was he the witness that pointed out that Froggy had crossed paths with a white woman? They seem to imply that, as he's the man in the top hat and such. Was he the one that reported him, and is that why Froggy is kind of going after him at this moment? Great scene in the mirror, by the way, in the beginning. Great, wonderful flash. You could see his shadow kind of pushes his temple in. His eyes turn red, and then he gets this brief flash of him back in time, and then the face degrading in that kind of demon visage, and then popping back. It was just a very cool, emotional, quick sequence, but done very well. But is he also a person repeating throughout time? Is this a part of his divinity? Is this a previous incarnation of him as a god, and then he was killed, and this is a reborn form of him? Or, again, interesting. Are they just using this aspect as storytelling, or are they trying to say something further with both Laura and Shadow reoccurring through history? Something to pay a little attention to. Wednesday planting Egadsrill, the world tree, and pissing on it to water it. That was a shot I really didn't need. The first bit was fine, but then hitting and splashing the camera lens, I didn't need to see that. And I was wondering at first if this was the seedling that Jin got last week when he went and picked up Gungnir. But he hadn't met up with Jin yet. That's what happens in this episode. It's where he leaves to go to meet up with Jin and Salim and pick up Gungnir. So that shouldn't be the seedling that Jin got last week. So what's the next one? For a moment, again, I just thought, oh, that's what he got. That's what he got for the guy. He got the world tree seedling, and this is what Wednesday is planting. But no, this is something different, unless they just did a bad time jump thing. But we should still at least find out what it is, the little seedling, the little piece that Jin got last week. So they didn't mention it, which kind of surprised me. Hopefully we'll find out soon, because now I've got actually more questions than I had before. Oh, and of course, finding out that many of Wednesday's people are not doing their work out of love or real devotion. Jin seemed to have lived in an amulet that was around Odin's neck until he released him, and now he is beholden to him. Did he just let him out of the vial and he effectively has his wishes still, or whatever that connection is with the Jinn outside of history? Or did Wednesday release Jin, and that's why he's beholden to him, because he set him free and now he effectively owes him one? Curious where that is, but there's definitely some tie to that. Sweeney as well, talking to Laura about owing Wednesday, that he hates Wednesday, hates him more than Laura could ever know. But he owes him, and therefore that's why he's working with him. So, I don't know, I guess this is the way the leaders work. World obviously not working, Tech Boy and Media and all of his group. They're not all performing just out of love. World uses fear a lot. For Wednesday, it seems to be more favors. But not the type of worship that he's wanting from Salim or trying to sell. That kind of dedication to self. So it's sort of interesting to see how each side is gathering their forces and getting them to fight for them. Jin's line to Salim, "You are entitled to your own truths, not your own facts," really, I think, resonates with today. Everybody's always focusing on their truths. Truths are what you believe. Facts are objective reality. You can use facts to get to truth. Don't let your truth refute facts, because that's not really the truth, right? Though, in that sense, they might be using truth as a form of belief, faith. That your own truth comes out of your belief in faith, which is objective from the facts, different from the facts. So, could be that too. All right, well, I think that's just going to go ahead and wrap things up for us. Thank you so much for joining me with this review. And also, just to let you guys know, did a big Season 8 preview of Game of Thrones over on Acton Tamco's channel. If you guys missed it, I'll go up and throw a link up here at the end. You can go and check it out. Really excited. Went a little long, it's about 2 hours, but diving into a lot of expectations, where we wanted to see characters go, what we wanted to sort of see the show happen, and maybe little fears and concerns of where it might go on the bad side. So, fun thing to check out. Go ahead and take a look if you're interested. And next week, of course, we have the final season of Game of Thrones. So those reviews will be popping up after this one goes air. So we'll be doing, you got 3 more episodes of American Gods and 6 episodes of Game of Thrones, all continuing up next week. So lots of fun stuff to come. Hope you guys come and join me for that. But that will wrap us up for now. Thank you again for joining me with this review. And if you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, throw those down in the section below. What do you guys think about this episode? What do you guys think about the season? Tell me if you could... Do you have a theme for the season? Let me know what that is. I'm really curious how you're all seeing this. But yes, please put those down in the section below. Share your thoughts with me. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. You can press this button to subscribe, and you can check out these reviews right here, including our Game of Thrones Season 8 preview and something other random right here. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.